of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
Good tidings, ladies and gentlemen of the Lodge, and welcome back. Today's video is going to be taking us to the beautiful landscape that is the Final World. The Final World, while simple in both its presentation and gameplay, I believe punctuate and amplify a lot of the symbolism and narrative in Kingdom Hearts 3. I personally have always felt that not only this world, but this entire gameplay segment is vastly underrated for a number of reasons. This topic was briefly touched on in another one of my videos, but I figure it's time that this world got a whole video of its own. I know the Final World has appeared in Melody of Memory, but that was more as a setting rather than an explorable world. So in this video, I will primarily be focusing on Kingdom Hearts 3 and Remind. So without wasting any more time, let's dive on in to the Final World. Let us recall that so long as we discount the Kingdom Hearts 3 tutorial segment, there isn't any combat in the Final World. The Final World primarily focuses on narrative, exploration, and dialogue, as well as some platforming and treasure hunting. In many ways, the Final World serves as a break from the traditional Kingdom Hearts gameplay in return for something a little more slower paced. Now, let me tell you why I love this. Because since its inception, Kingdom Hearts has always sought out ways to break up the gameplay. Let's be honest with ourselves. The combat is the meat and potatoes of this entire series, and that is something the devs have always understood. However, there has always been this attempt to mix things up along the journey. This can be evidenced by the gummy ship, the minigames, dives, the list goes on and on. Needless to say, that mix-up has always been there. Here's the thing though, and maybe this is just my opinion, you let me know, but a lot of these segments that are designed to break up the gameplay oftentimes can feel like they're just getting in the way. There is not one playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 2 where I am not dreading Atlantica. There's not one playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 3 where I'm not dreading the Winnie the Pooh minigames. It's not to say that any of these segments are bad per se, but they don't really feel like they serve the overall experience and narrative. Most of the time, they feel very self-contained. This is something that the Final World manages to transcend. It manages this by making every step you take in the Final World push the main narrative forward, and by giving the player some power and control over how long these segments last. There are two primary segments I want to break this up in and focus on. One being what we'll call the Nameless Star segment, and the second one being the segment where Sora rebuilds himself. Beginning with the Nameless Star segment. This portion of the world has us essentially running around this ethereal sort of plane, talking to all sorts of stars that have formed, many of whom experience feelings of regret or sorrow attached to their departures. The gameplay here is as simple as it gets. All that it really asks of you is to run around and engage in dialogue, which after everything we just experienced with the Keyblade War, the Fall to Darkness, us being brought here, it leaves the player in a state of confusion. What's going on? Why are we here? Why does Sora look that way? Where are we headed? Naturally, these feelings of curiosity and confusion would make the player want to run around and gather as much information as possible. And to reward those with a little extra curiosity, there's an optional cutscene with Naminé that can be unlocked. While simple on a gameplay forefront, it's effective. It allows the player to slow down and get themselves into a state of learning of what's going on around them. No need for fancy minigames, no need for little gameplay quirks, just let the player slow down and learn about the plot through the gameplay, not just cutscenes. What the Final World and this particular segment have accomplished is not only mixing up the gameplay, not only slowing the player down, but making it where every single action you take not only moves the plot forward, but tells the story itself. The rebuild segment takes this whole idea to another level, but for now I want to wrap this up by discussing some of the specific narrative points brought to light here. Let's keep in mind what two characters Sora meets here in this world for the first time: Chirithy and the Nameless Star. We didn't know it on our first playthrough, but with Chirithy being Ventus's Chirithy and the Nameless Star being connected to Yozora, we see now that the final world is responsible for not only connecting modern-day Kingdom Hearts to the Union Cross era, but to Yozora and the world of Quadratum as well. Both Union Cross and Quadratum were connected to us through the final world. Not to mention, I really love this little detail of the Nameless Star telling Sora Yozora's name, but not letting the audience hear it, then for it later to come to light in the Remind cutscene between these two. I just absolutely love it. So with that said, let's move on to the next segment, the one where Sora rebuilds himself. Gameplay-wise, the complexity elevates itself, but manages to keep it in a loose, mistake-free environment, which is another thing very unique to this particular world, is that you really can do no wrong. Anyway, when we glance over at the gameplay, we essentially see a platforming playground for us to run around in. This allows us to exercise and play with a lot of the game's mechanics. No boss to fight, no mini-game whose rules we have to learn, no new controls or mechanics to learn. Again, just a visually pleasing world that allows one to essentially platform at their own pace. But let's talk a little bit more about that. What exactly are we doing here? Well, this is the moment we became informed that Kairi was essentially holding the last bits of us together, keeping us from fading away. So now we have to take it upon ourselves to rebuild Sora from the ground up. Particularly, this is the part I find most profound. Let us recall what Sora is going through and what his particular story is up to this point. Kingdom Hearts 3 brings us to a Sora who is shortly following his biggest failure yet in Dream Drop Distance, nearly becoming a Xehanort vessel. We see especially in the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 3 how this has utterly broken the Sora we once knew. The Sora we once knew had an unwavering optimism, a happy-go-lucky guy who never gives up. But we see in Kingdom Hearts 3, through his facial expressions as well as his encounter with Maleficent and Pete in Olympus, that the Sora we once knew has been broken. Further evidenced by him giving up all hope in the Keyblade Graveyard. Even with Kairi gone, the Sora we know wouldn't give up this easily. But this isn't the Sora we know. This is a Sora that has been clouded with self-doubt. After this said self-doubt led to our demise, we see Kairi, the one who always sees the best in Sora, affording us a second chance. So we now need to go around collecting Soras in order to rebuild him. And if we recall, a lot of the Soras who are in this world seem to embody this carefree, happy-go-lucky attitude that we are looking to rebuild and emulate. In a world where the realms of sleep and death can overlap, we ourselves had to rebuild Sora from the ground up, restoring him to that hero we all know, the one who never gives up. And of course, this was accomplished in a world where all you can see is the sky, which, as we know, is the meaning behind Sora's name. Additionally, in order to rebuild this carefree Sora, we were put in a gameplay segment that was quite carefree in nature. There was no way to die or really mess up. So where we had one gameplay segment that helped flesh out and expand the horizons of the Kingdom Hearts universe by connecting us to Union Cross and Quadratum, on the other hand, the other segment was very intimate and personally focused on Sora, creating such a juxtaposition between the two segments that I think they harmonize quite well, to the point that now every time I do replay Kingdom Hearts 3, the final world is a place I am always looking forward to. I also just briefly want to touch on that this world, in terms of its presentation of music and visuals, is stunning. I absolutely love the final world theme that is playing on this video right now. I absolutely love the beautiful aesthetics of a world contained entirely by a blue sky. Now, before we close this out, without even getting into Melody of Memory, I want to play a little scene from the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind that I think reminds us what this series and our enjoyment of it is all about.
You know, this really is a beautiful place, but you'd enjoy it so much more with someone you care about. Before, when I was looking around with Kairi, I remembered how important it is to share moments with friends. That's why you're coming with us.
Again, reiterating that the final world is a place where the series has a way of amplifying itself. So with that said, what are all of your thoughts on the final world? Do you agree with my premise that this world is not only vastly underrated, but it is perhaps one of the best original worlds the series has to offer? Let me know. Anyway, be sure to like the video to please that almighty algorithm, subscribe to the channel for more gaming content, be good to yourselves and each other, and I will see all of you beautiful sickos and normies next time.
All of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
Why not just sit back and watch it play out?
All of this was decided.
May your heart be your guiding key.